Good morning, everybody. It's Norman from EssexHairdressers.com. I hope you're well. Now, if you're sort of nuts about your scissors like I am, and as we know, it's our most important tool that we use, we decided to put a little video together for your enjoyment. Now, we interviewed a guy called Grant Jones, and he runs a company called Scissor Sharp. This video lasts for about 29 minutes or so, and it really does take us into quite a lot of different elements to do with our scissors. I hope you enjoy. Now, tell us something. So you went to the training course in Bath first?
Yes, that's
right.
it. Yeah, and then went and done the
training
course
in Bath is purely scissors?
No, yes and no.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want to go into for a profession. Now, he could train you on a lot of things. It depends on what you want your skill set to be. I predominantly said scissors because I know that in this area there's a lot of hairdressers, a lot of hair salons that would benefit from that.
Yeah.
So I spent my 3 days learning the ins and outs of a scissor.
So went to America. What did they teach you?
Well, they taught me how to make a scissor from the ground up. We got there and we were given a block of metal. There were 6 of us doing our training, and we all went into the foundry, and we had to learn how to cast scissor from the ground up. And then at the end of it, we was presented with the scissor that we made. And then throughout the 2 weeks, we literally was concentrated on that scissor the whole time. And they showed us how to literally make it from the ground up. So with that knowledge, if a hairdresser or a barber was to bring me a pair of scissors and said, look, Grant, they're not cutting at the throat, they're cutting at the tips, could you sort it? I can deconstruct the whole process in my head and sort the issue out without having to take too much metal off and reduce the life of the scissor. And then I done a 2-week training course over in America, in Nebraska in America.
How did you find out about that?
That was through the training course in Bath.
Right. So you went to the training course in Bath first?
Yes, that's
right.
it. Yeah, and then went and done the training
course in Bath is purely scissors?
No, yes and no.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want to go into for a profession. Now, he could train you on a lot of things. It depends on what you want your skill set to be. I predominantly said scissors because I know that in this area there's a lot of hairdressers, a lot of hair salons that would benefit from that.
Yeah.
So I spent my 3 days learning the ins and outs of a scissor.
So went to America. What did they teach you?
Well, they taught me how to make a scissor from the ground up. We got there and we were given a block of metal. There were 6 of us doing our training, and we all went into the foundry, and we had to learn how to cast scissor from the ground up. And then at the end of it, we was presented with the scissor that we made. And then throughout the 2 weeks, we literally was concentrated on that scissor the whole time. And they showed us how to literally make it from the ground up. So with that knowledge, if a hairdresser or a barber was to bring me a pair of scissors and said, look, Grant, they're not cutting at the throat, they're cutting at the tips, could you sort it? I can deconstruct the whole process in my head and sort the issue out without having to take too much metal off and reduce the life of the scissor.
Right. So investment wise, did you know beforehand how much you'll need to invest in to get the equipment you need?
No, I didn't have a clue.
All right. No ballpark figure?
No.
So what did you end up costing you?
It's cost me near on 10,000 for my equipment because I use the best grade Shapstones, I use the best grade diamond wheels. I don't use dressmakers wheels, only when I'm doing.
Generally, the scissors that you sharpen, what's the percentage of people spend on a pair of scissors? Because you know when you're sharpening a pair of scissors, you know the quality that you're sharpening.
Yeah.
Are people generally investing good money in their scissors, would you say?
Yes, a lot of people are proud of their scissors, and they see them as their babies, which I completely understand.
Yeah.
I have a lot of nervous customers that first time sharpening them for them, they say, be very, very careful. They are my babies. Completely understand that they are. They've cost you a lot of money. As you all know, scissors can range from anywhere from £90 up to £1,000 plus.
And there's not going to be that much difference between a £500 to a £1,000 pair of scissors. What would be the difference?
The difference is in the quality of steel. So a £1,000 pair of scissors will be slightly softer and easier to use, be a bit smoother, and they would have just you'd feel the quality.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So the softer steel is the better quality
The better
steel.
quality steel, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you say softer, what do you mean?
Well, it's the way that they're cast, the way they're forged, the amount of metals that they're used. So you can get like cobalt mixed steel scissors. They're quite rigid. They tend to snap quite a lot after sharpening. But then you can get some real soft steel scissors, which are absolutely lovely to work on. They're very malleable, and they, you can work on them. You can put the set back into them quite easily as well, because it's generally when you're putting set back into a scissor, that's when they snap.
What does that mean, set back?
So so if you get your pair of scissors and you open them up, you'll see that the blades aren't completely flat. They are curved slightly, so they run along the curved edge. They cut as they touch, rather than being flat and they cut all the way along. They only cut as they touch. So if you can imagine, the scissor is set like that. So that's your set. So what happens is, over time, the scissor tends to flatten out, and that's when you end up losing the tips. So as soon as you've been cutting for a little while, you might say, oh, Grant, they've started losing the tips. Can you sort that out? Okay, that's just a set issue. So what I do is I get my setter, and then I re-put that bend back into the very end.
Do you have to use like heat in that process?
No.
Shape it?
With the cobalt mixed steels, I'd recommend using a little bit of heat, because they tend to snap. Because they're cast with air bubbles in them, and if they've been dropped, what can happen? Across the air bubble, you get hairline fractures, and then as soon as you put that little bit of bend into them, they can snap.
Wow.
And I've had that go quite a lot on cobalt scissors, and they generally say explicitly on the blades that they are cobalt, a mixed.
Do you have people having scissors that have had for 15, 20 years come to you still?
Yeah.
Yeah? They've kept them that long?
Yeah, especially
Can you
things
tell
like
when you've got a pair of scissors in your hand, you've not seen them make, heard of them make, whatever, can you tell roughly how much those scissors cost?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. There tends to be a standard.
Okay. Tell us about this pair.
Okay, what have we got here?
What you got here?
Right, so it's a Kazuki 5-inch. So looking at these, I'd potentially say they're a 0-152. I'd potentially say these are probably about the 400 mark, maybe the 350 to 400, because of the steel that they're made out of.
When you said 0-152, what does that mean?
That's the mix of steel that they've got. Like if you ever look on the blade, it will say something like a 101 or a 401 or a 501, and it means that that's the ratio of steel that's been used.
Oh, right.
And yeah, these are quite a smooth scissor. Yeah.
They're not the ones you cut your nose there with, are they?
But yeah, they're a nice scissor, those.
You like those?
Yeah.
No, nice and small. Look at those. We love a small pair of scissors, don't we, Nate?
How long have you had these?
These are Kazoo one, and you send them back in the post if you want.
Yeah.
Is that value that you put on them about right for what they cost?
Very, very much spot on. Well done. Well done indeed. And because we can't find, it's quite hard to find scissors that are this small, this delicate, this type of scissor that I particularly enjoy working with. And you do as well, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some.
We like small scissors,
Yeah.
especially for short hair.
Yeah, a lot of hairdressers do like the shorter scissors.
Yeah. Ever since there's a Sassoon stylist, Kate. Oh, what was his name? What was his name, Nathan? The Sassoon man.
Oh,
Stacey Broughton. Ever since I saw and watched Stacey Broughton's video that he was doing for Video Sassoon back in the day, he was using really small scissors, and I just fell in love with that type of work.
Yeah.
And also those scissors that he was using,
There you go. So if you look on these, you see it says Cobalt.
Yeah.
So these would be a pair that, when putting the set back into them, I would generally heat them, or I would be very, very gentle. And if they didn't need set putting into them, I wouldn't, because these potentially they could snap.
Right.
Because they're the Cobalt mix.
Okay.
So, I mean, with Cobalts,
Do they feel like they're all right to you, or do they feel like they could do with some adjustment or sharpening or attention?
Yeah, they feel okay. I mean, the general rule of the test that we do is we like to drop the handle, not the one with the tang on it, but we like to drop the other handle. And generally, these are a little bit loose because generally we like them to stop about there.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's the right tension.
Right.
Because a pair of scissors, the whole idea of the tension on the scissors is because of the set. If it's too tensioned, you'll end up putting the set out straight away, and you'll end up flattening the ends, and you'll end up losing the tips.
Because they're basically being pressed together.
That's
too
exactly.
much. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what I would do is I'd just recommend a bit of a tension on these, get them a little bit tighter so they stop roughly about there.
Right.
And then.
Because I would have believed that when it drops and if it didn't close like that, they'd be a bit tight.
No, that's a misconception. So these are a little bit too loose. Now, what you do is you run the risk of it bending hair because they're too loose. Because what will happen is, as you go to cut the hair, if the blade isn't up to the job, it'll end up opening this gap here.
Right.
And what that will do is that will open the tips, and it will just fold the hair. So sometimes, if your scissors are folding hair, it comes down to a tension issue, rather than it needing sharpening. It could just be a tension issue or a set issue. But obviously, the knowledge I know, I can tell you that, if you've got.
I mean, does that feel like a quality tool, or does that feel like a average thing?
Yeah, I'd say these are a quality pair of scissors. They're labelled Tony and Guy, so I suspect they probably put their mark up on them as well.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'd probably say they've got a nice straight handle on them. I'd probably say they're around about maybe 350, 400 pounds once again. Maybe a little bit more.
Does it say what brand they are? I know it says it's got Tony and Guy on them, but otherwise, because they are actually
MM Cobalt, and they're a Mantis. Mantis
So
77.
they're the scissors you were talking about?
They're Matsuzaki. They're not the ones that I've had in my garage for 15
No,
years.
not
Oh yeah,
ones.
Matsuzaki. Yeah,
Matsuzaki.
Now I don't know too much about the Matsuzaki, so I wouldn't want to.
They used to be the things to have back in the day when, going back sort of 15, 16 years or so, when I was, really excited about scissors.
Mm-hmm.
Are you not now then?
I'm not as excited as I used to be about scissors, if I'm honest.
Why is that?
I don't know. I've got a lot of pairs of scissors.
Yes.
I come back to using the same pair frequently, and I don't have my scissors sharpened. I tend to just replace with new scissors.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, a lot of people do that. Actually, I've got quite an interesting story. I've got a customer who I went in and I spoke to him and I said, "Look, I'll sharpen your scissors." And he said, "No." He said, I replace my scissors every year with a brand new pair of £500 Joels. And I said to him, "Look, let me just do one pair for you." I've done one pair for him, and now I've saved him £500 a year, because he now comes to me and he gives me £15 to sharpen that same pair. And I've been back to him 3 or 4 times.
I must say, I know you was just starting off. £15 seems to be
too cheap.
Yeah, well, it seems to be great value. But it's perhaps because you're just starting off and you want to get into the marketplace, and disappointment has happened so many times, perhaps with us.
Yeah,
that we
replace rather than maintain.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, as craftsmen, hairdressers, I mean, I just like treating myself, I suppose, to a pair of scissors. I think if I can't justify, buying a new set of shears, whether it's every year or 2 years or something, to invest in my craft and my profession, there'd be something wrong with that picture.
Yeah.
But the reason why I've gone more down that line is because in the past, people sharpening or adjusting my scissors has never worked well for me.
Yeah. To be honest, that's across the board. you're not alone there. I have met quite a lot of customers that have all said the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, the sharpening, once they've been sharpened, the scissors just never felt right.
Yeah.
And it's because I can probably say that the person that is doing the sharpening hasn't been and done the extensive training, because I'm up to the standard that the guys in the Joel factory are at.
Right.
So I'm giving the same service as you would buy a brand new pair of scissors from Joel,
Yeah.
and you expect them to be sharpened and last 18, 24 months. I'm giving that same service, but for £15. So I'm saving you having to go to Joel or another scissor maker.
This is the pair of scissors that I've used every day and have done for probably about 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and I would.
You've given that workload to one pair of scissors for 2 years.
Don't get me wrong, they get a break every now and again, but you know, 80% of everything that I do with cutting hair is done with that pair of shears.
Yeah, very nice. Once again, mixed cobalt as well. 5.5, yeah. Yeah, they're a nice pair of scissors. A little bit loose. I'd definitely tension those up for you. But once again, it comes down to your cutting style as well. You know,
I do like a baggy scissor.
Yeah, I can
I
tell.
like that sort of like
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah.
Like people have always said, listening to me cutting hair, normally other hairdressers rather than clients, they're like,
Yeah.
you know, your scissors, I can tell you cutting hair if I have my eyes closed.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain sort of
Noise to it.
yeah, like almost a rhythmical type of you know, pattern in the way that I'm closing the scissors, but there's a certain, you know, ching to it as well.
Yeah.
And what I find with my scissors over time is that I don't know what you call it, the little like grub screw with the rubber thing that stops
the
it
adjuster.
closing on the.
Oh yeah.
That
Just the
ends
bump
up
stuff.
going quite flat.
Yeah.
In the end,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's because I've got quite a
Yeah, you've got
assertive,
quite an aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, for those youngsters out there that are just coming into the hairdressing world, and they haven't got the finances to invest in a good pair of scissors,
Yeah.
what do you think the options are? You know,
Well, there's one company that I'd 100% recommend. You're looking at about £90 for a really, really good set of scissors, and they're a company called DMI.
yeah,
They're absolutely fantastic. The first time I laid my eyes on them was a barber over in Stevenage,
Yeah.
and he gave me these scissors, and I looked at them and I thought, these don't look that expensive. So I said to him, roughly how much are they? And he said, oh, they're about £90. And then I started working on them, and they were a beautiful pair of scissors to work on. They were very soft, very sharp. They were full convex as well, which with a pair of Joels, if you buy full convex, now the more money you spend, the hard, like they go from a bevel to a semi-convex to a full convex. Now, a bevel pair of scissors, generally they're the cheaper end. You're normally spending about £100 on a bevel. A semi-convex can go anywhere from 100 to 250, and then a full convex anywhere from 250 to about £1,000 really. But the higher ends are generally full convex because you can get a steeper angle, so you can get a lot sharper, and they stay sharper for longer as well. And they tend to feel nicer when you use them. But DMI do a full convex pair of scissors for £90.
Whoa.
And they're a really soft steel as well.
Okay.
So very forgiving if you drop them.
do you find that you know, people have perhaps in their kit only one pair of scissors? Have you found that along your?
Yeah, a few people.
You know, and what would you say? I mean, we know that as scissor people, we're in this world of hairdressing, that we need at least four pairs in our kit. You know, to give each pair of scissors a different workload to do every week, just so that they stay nice and sharp. So we're just thinking about what, you know, how to help youngsters with perhaps having more scissors at their disposal, because one is not enough.
No.
Especially that it gets dropped to the floor, and what happens with that once it's dropped to the floor? You know, it's just it's an area that we'd like to help. You know, and we're just thinking about, is there a potential that hairdressers could rent scissors? You know, young hairdressers that are starting off, just so that they have an accumulation of 3 or 4 really good pairs of scissors that they could pay per month as a rental, as opposed to buying them, which is, you know, costs a lot of money. But we know that we need to invest in our scissors. You know, that is our trade. This is what we do. This is our bread and butter. That's how we earn a living. So we should spend and invest a lot of money. But we know that younger kids haven't got that, and we just wondering what, you know, the answers are really.
Yeah.
And we think, you know, is there a rental scheme out there that no one's done? That perhaps.
Well, to be honest, there is what I've found in the catering world, because I do a lot of chef's knives. Now there is a company that's out there that do rental knives. So every 6 weeks, they turn up, they take away the old set of knives, and they give a brand new set, and that's only about £35.
A month?
A month, yeah.
Right.
So every 6 weeks they come in and they just give you a brand new set of knives. They take the old ones away, sharpen those up, and it's
Why
like
aren't they doing scissors? Hairdressers.
You've just touched on something there that might be a good idea.
For them?
That might be a good idea to go into, you know, barbers, hairdressers, and places like that, and offer that as a service.
Then we would have the proper equipment.
Yeah.
From day one.
Yeah, and it would all be sharp. And you'd have a spare pair in the kit as well. If you dropped your pair, you could have a spare pair as well. A couple of texturising scissors as well.
I've got a question, more of a statement, if you like. Any time that I've ever had brand new scissors or scissors sharpened, sounds a bit stupid. Sometimes they're too sharp. I end up butchering my hands with a pair.
You're always going to butcher your hands.
No, never. Not once my patinaed. Once my scissors have become used and, you know, taken that edge off slightly dulled. Yeah. They still are cutting for me perfectly. They're not catching, they're not folding hair, they're gliding through hair. But I never cut myself. But as soon as they go to then, you know, fresh, either brand new or freshly sharp, don't know what it is, but I just end up absolutely hammered my hands. Don't know why.
What was the question?
Statement. I think.
It's why I'm scared of having my scissors sharpened as well. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I believe it's because they're fresh in your hands again, and it's almost like psychological.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's almost like
I'm not the only person that will say that.
No, well, I've been called back to a few salons before where I've done such a sharp pair of scissors. I had a pair recently. She called me back. She said, "Oh, they're too sharp. I'm not even feeling the cuts on my fingers now."
Yeah.
So what I did was I dulled them down by putting a slightly less angle on them.
I've never heard that. Says my scissors are too sharp.
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah. I've had it a couple of times now. Yeah, but it's mainly hairdressers. Women that do barbering. That's the general people that come back to me and they say, "Oh, they're a bit too sharp." It might be because they're cutting short hair rather than long hair, and it's a lot closer quarters. I don't know, but yes, I've had to go back a few times and put a less of an angle on there, so it's not as sharp.
Well, I think also the timing. When you're sort of using 2 or 3 different pairs of scissors in the course of your working week, sometimes the timing of each of those scissors can be where you might get cut, because because that's what's happened to me.
Yeah.
Is if I go from one scissor to another scissor, then the likelihood is my timing might be slightly different with another pair of scissors, and I might get cut. But anyway, it's fascinating talking about scissors today with Grant. And Grant, are you going to be looking at any Essex Hairdressers events for 2021?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're coming along, bring your scissors, bring your clippers.
And tell us how successful was that event for you to come along to?
Initially it didn't seem like it was going to pay off because I didn't feel that I got the comeback from it until I got a phone call from a local lady who invited me into her salon. I went in there, I spent a whole day in there. I ended up doing copious amounts of pairs of scissors, and from the back of that, I've now got a lot of work come from the back.
So as far as maintenance and storage goes, what's your tips there?
Well, if you're storing them for any longer than say overnight, I would store them with the tips slightly open. The reason being is because of the set, which we've already mentioned before. Scissors aren't straight, so they have a set in them. And if you store them with the tips closed, you're putting all the pressure of the scissor on the tips, and eventually that will bow them out and you'll end up losing the tips. So if you do find quite a lot that the tips are going on your scissors, it's because you're storing them closed. So I'd recommend, even if you've got a little wallet that you put your scissors in, I'd recommend getting a little bit of card or a little bit of tissue and just putting it between the two thumb hole or between the two finger holes and just opening up the tips. Only just a touch, but it takes all the pressure off, and you'll notice that your scissors will last a hell of a lot longer by doing that.
Do you think hairdressers should oil their scissors?
Oiling is okay as long as the oil goes into the joint. A bit of disinfectant on a kitchen towel and just rub the blade. Rub it away from you. Never this way either, because you can end up cutting yourself. But rub it away from you and then get a dry bit and just make sure that the blade is completely dry before you make your cut. If you make a cut with a wet blade,
it's interesting that. Yeah, go on.
If you
Sorry.
make a cut with a wet blade, what happens?
you can dull the blade straight away. Going back to the popular disinfectant that people have been told to put this into, people are starting to cut.
Can I just say, salon side is our preferred.
Salon side,
Salon side is our preferred.
So people are not, as soon as they're taking them out, they start cutting straight away. You shouldn't do that because it is quite a thick viscosity of oil that's on there. And what happens is it just dulls that blade straight off. So you want to make sure that your blades are completely bone dry before you do any cutting. Water's fine because it's very thin.
It's interesting because you say that you wait for it to be bone dry. Before each client, I will spray salon side on my client. So then
what you want to do is just get a dry bit of cloth or kitchen towel and just make sure that you've got it all off the blades. You do not want anything left on those blades before you make a cut.
What a great
tip.
tip.
If you do, it will dull that edge straight off.
What a great tip.
Yeah.
I think
We
as
might
far
have
as
to add 15 minutes onto our appointments for scissor maintenance and repair.
I think it's really important that we do educate, obviously, the importance of scissors, and obviously keeping our scissors clean, maintained, and for each client we should be making sure that we use a product like Salon Side to keep your scissors, your comb, your equipment super clean, and I think that's, for me, it's very important. Is it important for you now?
Absolutely, more than ever.